Very good evening to all of you. Today we are starting the registration chapter, GST registrations. In this chapter, we will discuss when it is mandatory to take registration, can anyone take voluntarily registration, what happen if the registration is being cancelled, how to revoke it, all those stuff we are going to discuss in this chapter. So starting with the section 22. So first, if I talk about the GST registration number, it is a 15-digit number. The GST registration number is a 15-digit number. Starting 2-digit will represent the state code. Next 10-digit represent the permanent account number. Next 1-digit represent the number of the registration in the state, and normally it is come Z by default. Last two digit is the by default system generated number. Check some error. Now, first we are talking about section 22, person liable to take registration. It has 4 subsections: subsection 1, subsection 2, subsection 3, and subsection 4. In the 22 subsection 1, it talk about one should take registration when the turnover, not the turnover, when the aggregate turnover exceed the threshold limit. Supplier shall be liable to be registered in the act other than special category state from where he make a taxable supplies if his aggregate turnover exceed 20 lakhs. So first point is, if aggregate turnover is exceed 20 lakh. Now the important term is, what is the meaning of aggregate turnover? What is the meaning of aggregate turnover? We will discuss. This particular term has been defined in the GST. But this point is clear that if my aggregate turnover exceed the threshold limit, that is initially 20 lakhs, what is the changes after that? We'll discuss in the proviso. It says that provided that where taxable supplies of the goods or services from any of the special category state shall be liable to be registered if aggregate turnover exceed 10 lakh. So what we have understood, if aggregate turnover exceed 20 lakh in the normal state other than special category state, then liable to take registration. If it is in a special category state, then it is greater than 10 lakh. Along with aggregate turnover, we need to understand what is the meaning of special category state. Fine. Next point is, it says that at the request of the special category state, on the recommendation of the council, enhance the aggregate turnover from 10 to 20 lakhs. It means now this proviso says that if the special category state are there, for which normal limit is 10 lakh, they can request, at their request, then they can enhance the limit to 20 lakh. Meaning thereby, now it is possible that certain special category state are having the turnover 10 lakh and certain special category state are having the turnover 20 lakhs. Provided also that the government may, at the request of the state on the recommendation of the council, enhance the aggregate turnover from 20 to 40. It means now state has also given the power. Now means state has also given the power to enhance the limit from 20 to 40 lakhs. When? If supplier is exclusively engaged in the supply of the goods. When? If the supplier is exclusively engaged in the supply of the goods then the limit can be enhanced from 20 to 40 lakhs. So by the section 22 subsection 1, we have understood that limit can be, normal limit is 20 lakh, for special category state 10 lakh. 20 can be increased to 40. 20 can be increased to 40. If supplier is exclusively engaged in the supply of the goods. And similarly, special category state can enhance their turnover, their threshold limit from 10 to 20. Explanation says that a person shall be considered to be exclusively engaged in the goods even if he is engaged in the exempt supply of the service. Which service? Only discount on extending deposit, loan and advances. Going in the next page, what is the meaning of aggregate turnover? Try to understand what is the meaning of aggregate turnover, because we need to see my aggregate turnover. If exceed threshold limit, then one has to take registration, otherwise not. Aggregate turnover means the value of all outward supplies, whether it is taxable or exempted or export or interstate, of the person having the same PAN to be computed on all India basis. For example, Mr. A is registered in Maharashtra. He's not registered. He's doing the business in Maharashtra. He's doing the business in Rajasthan. He's doing the business in Haryana. For computing the aggregate turnover, we will calculate the turnover of Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Haryana, all the states from where he is making the supply, taxable or exempt or export or interstate, one PAN multiple GST. But we will never include the GST part, CGST, SGST, UTGST, IGST or compensation cess. And second part, we will also not include inward supply on which that person, inward supply on which person is paying the tax under RCM. What is the RCM? Reverse charge mechanism. What is the reverse charge mechanism? When the instead of the supplier, the recipient of the transaction, recipient of the supply will pay the tax. That is the reverse charge. Example, legal services. Example, transportation services. Coming back to the discussion, what is the meaning of aggregate turnover? We will include all outward supplies, whether it is taxable or exempted or export or interstate, of the person having the same PAN, to be computed on all India basis. But we will not include GST, whether C, S, U or I or cess. And we will also not include inward supplies, because we are calculating turnover. We are calculating outward supplies. So we will never include inward covered under RCM. So that is the meaning of aggregate turnover. Now, aggregate turnover, when we calculate the aggregate turnover, if it is to exceed 20 lakh or 10 lakh or 40 lakh or amount which we have discussed, if exceed the from prescribed threshold limit, that person has to take registration in the GST. Fine. So I'm asking simple question to all of you. Mr. A is doing the business. Mr. A is doing the business, say in Maharashtra, in Rajasthan. Maharashtra, he has the taxable turnover of 10 lakh, exempted turnover 5 lakh, and also 5 lakh supply of the petrol or supply of the petrol. In Rajasthan, he is not doing the business of taxable supplies. He is only engaged in the alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Let's say it is 20 lakhs. Please tell me what is the aggregate turnover of Mr. A? What is the aggregate turnover of Mr. A? This is my question to all the participants. I am waiting for your reply. Once you give the reply, then we'll discuss one more important things. Mahadev, we are going to discuss one by one every clause. Just wait for a couple of minutes. Yet to reach on the 40 lakhs, I have just read the language. Yet to analyze that provision, and then we'll do the question answer. Rest to be sure. But please all give me the answer. Please all give me the answer. In this case, what would be the aggregate turnover of Mr. A? Is it 10 plus 5, 15? Or is it 20? Or is it 40 lakhs? You all are saying that most of the participants, one or two participants, if I leave aside, Hitesh, is there any concern? Why 20 lakhs? I needed to calculate the aggregate turnover of Mr. A. I need to calculate the aggregate turnover of Mr. A. Will it include Will it include Maharashtra and Rajasthan both? Answer is yes. Will it include only taxable supply or exempt supply? Both. Now the point is whether alcoholic liquor for human consumption or whether petrol will be added or not. The main question in this particular exercise, I like to explain whether supply of alcoholic liquor or petrol will be included in the aggregate turnover or not. The answer is yes, it will be included. Why? If you refer the definition of the exempt supply, it is being given in section 2 clause 47. It says that 3 types of the transaction will be included in the exempt supply. Repeating again, the word exempt supply has been defined in the GST in the section 2 clause 47. That exempt supply, meaning of exempt supply says that exempted by way of notification issued under section 6 or under section 11. Then nil rated supplies, and last, exempt supply include non-taxable supplies. Exempt supply include non-taxable supplies. What is the non-taxable supplies? Non-taxable supplies, alcoholic liquor and 5 specified petroleum product. And therefore, I can say that the given case, Mr. A is having the aggregate turnover of 40 lakhs, the alcoholic liquor for human consumption and petrol will also be added because non-taxable supply is an exempt supply and exempt supply will be added in the aggregate turnover. Kindly confirm. I hope it is clear because you all have given the answer as 40 lakhs. So there is no doubt about that. We have discussed this part. We have discussed this part. We'll discuss. Now, the limit is normally the limit is 20 lakhs. If I am into the normal state, limit is 20 lakhs. If I am into the special category state, limit is 40 lakhs. 10 lakhs, sorry. And if I am exclusively engaged in the goods, then limit would be 40 lakhs. Now, these 3 terms we need to understand in detail, and we have to spend a good time on this particular part. Now, first try to understand what is the meaning of special category state. What is the meaning of special category state? The special category state, the word has been defined in Indian Constitution, Article 279A, Clause 4, Subclause G. It talk about total 11 state. It talk about total 11 state. Who? Indian Constitution. According to the Indian Constitution, there are total 11 states which is called as a special category state. But if I refer the definition given in the GST Act, Section 22, third explanation, Section 22. Third explanation says that there are only 4 states are special category state, which are Mizoram, Tripura, Manipur, Nagaland. Kindly remember the name of these states: Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Tripura. Fine. And rest are not now the special category state, according to the explanation third of the section 22. Therefore, the 10 lakh limit is applicable only for these 4 states. Therefore, the limit of the 10 lakh would be applicable to these 4 states: Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura, and Nagaland. Now, try to understand this notification. In order to understand what is the threshold limit, we should first read this notification and then we'll move to the state-wise what is the threshold limit. Notification number 10 issued on 7th March says that if you are exclusively engaged in the supply of the goods, then limit would be 40 lakhs. What is the meaning of exclusively supplying the goods? Suppose Mr. A is doing the business of shoes, let's say shoes. So he's supplying the goods and he's supplying within the state, because interstate fall under mandatory registration. So I'm talking about that Mr. A, who's doing the business of the shoes, he is selling the goods within the state, then limit would not be 20, limit would be 40 lakhs. This part is clear. This part is clear that if some supplier, if any supplier is exclusively engaged in the goods, then limit would be 40. Now, 40 lakh for special category state also. Just now we have discussed that for the special category state, that these 4 states, the threshold limit would be 10 lakhs. This 4 state, the threshold limit would be 10 lakhs, not the 40. 40 if exclusively engaged in the supply of the goods, and that to be other than special category state. ठीक है रेखा? Kindly confirm. Now we are talking about that this particular notification is given some proviso, some exception, meaning thereby the limit of the 40 lakh would not be applicable in the below circumstances. So otherwise, if I'm exclusively engaged in the goods, what you will say, the limit would be 40 lakhs. Person required to take compulsory registration, then 40 lakh limit would not be applicable. Let's say I told you that I am engaged in the interstate supply of the goods. It become mandatory registration according to the section 24. Then can I say my limit would be 40 lakhs? Answer is no. The limit would be 40 lakh would be applicable in the intra-state supply, not the inter, because in the inter you have to take compulsory registration according to the section 24 clause 1. Yes, Somesh, only goods, and that to be intra. Absolutely correct. Now, second, if any person engaged in making the supply of the ice cream, other edible ice, whether or not containing cocoas, they have given the HSN code also, tariff, pan masala, and all goods of the chapter 24, that is tobacco and the manufactured tobacco substitute. If one engaged in the supply of these items, then he will not be eligible to take the threshold limit of 40 lakhs. So what would be the limit? Normal limit 20 lakhs or 10 lakhs as the case may be. Person engaged in making intra-state supplies in the state of Arunachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Meghalaya, Sikkim, Telangana, Puducherry, and special category state as per section 22, for which the limit of the 40 lakhs would not be applicable. Now, the limit of every state is slightly cumbersome. You need to remember for which state what is the limit. For which state what is the limit. So parallelly, now try to understand this threshold limit chart. Let me ask any question for the time being. Let me ask any question for the time being. Special category state. Now, Akash, a special category state, according to the section 22, the special category state is only 4 states? Yes or no? Special category state are only 4 states? Yes or no? Special category state, according to section 22, explanation 3rd, there are only 4 states. Try to remember the name: Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura. So whether 40 lakh limit would be applicable, suppose Akash is saying that someone is doing the business in Mizoram, Manipur, Nagaland, Tripura, and is engaged exclusively goods, whether limit to the 40 lakh would be applicable. Answer is no. Answer is no. Reason thereby, again, see the notification. The notification says that limit of the 40 lakh will not be applicable in the below circumstances. It means if I am doing the supply in these states, including special category state, the limit of the 40 lakh would not be applicable. Therefore, I can say, Akash, therefore I can say for the special category state, the normal limit would be applicable, 10 lakh, or these 4 states are 10 lakh, and if they have enhanced the turnover, then that is the different situation. We'll discuss every state. For the time being, I hope your question is answered. Let me go to the chart. So remember Arunachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Meghalaya, Sikkim. Remember these names so that this chart is talking about the state certain name and threshold limit. Exclusively engaged in the goods, then what is the limit? If I am not exclusively engaged in the goods, it means either I am doing the supply of the service or I am doing the service as well as goods. See, the first column is talking about that if someone is exclusively engaged in the goods, what would be threshold limit? Fine. So this chart is divided very beautiful chart. See, they are talking about total 11 special category states. Out of that, 4 which are special category state according to section 20, section 22, for that limit would be 10 lakh. I hope it is clear. The limit would be 10 lakh because they have not enhanced their threshold limit. 40 cannot be applicable, and now there are only 4 special category states, so therefore the limit would be 10 lakhs. Section 18 subsection 1 also mandatory registration is same as section 24. Absolutely correct. Wherein I can say not only section 24, they are talking about 18 subsection 1 clause A talking about mandatory registration, wherein they are covering both section 22 or section 24, not only 24. Ankur, section 22(1) normal saying that your limit would be 20 lakh except special category state. I hope you have seen that line, except special category state. Then they have inserted the proviso. They are saying for the special category state, limit would be 10 lakh. Then they are saying special category state can enhance their limit from 10 to 20. Then they are saying the limit would be 40 if you are exclusively engaged in the course. There are the 4 parts. The first 20, they are excluding special category state. So the limit will be 10 lakhs. I hope it is clear. Now, next point. Now, these state, which state? You can say Arunachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Meghalaya, Sikkim, Telangana, Puducherry. So you can see there would be amount would be 20 lakhs. Puducherry, Telangana. Then Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Sikkim, and Uttarakhand. While 20, because in the notification, it says that in the below state, the limit would 40 lakh would not be applicable. It means normal limit. So you will find the both are same. You will find both are same. Both are same. And rest, I can say, for the rest, I can say, if exclusively engaged in the goods, 40 lakhs, and otherwise 20 lakhs. There is one more chart you can refer for better remembering the provisions. The limit of the 10 lakh would be for the fourth special category state. The limit would be 20 lakh for the goods and or services. Arunachal, Meghalaya, Sikkim, Uttarakhand, Puducherry, whatever the name is being given in, the notification. For rest of the state, they are saying 40 lakh if they are engaged in the supply of the goods, and 20 lakhs if they are engaged in the exclusively supply of the service or service plus goods. Kindly confirm till here. Is it clear, or any question kindly ask? Any doubt with respect to 10 lakh, 20 lakhs, 40 lakhs, kindly ask. Any doubt with respect to 10 lakh, 20 lakh, 40 lakh, kindly ask. A person has many branches and one of its special category state. So can still answer is no. Very good question. Very good question. Let me answer this question. If I'm doing the business, let's say I'm doing the business in Jammu and Kashmir, Assam, Himachal, and Manipur. I hope, Pooja, you are asking this question. I am doing the business in Jammu and Kashmir, Assam, Himachal, and Manipur. What would be my threshold limit if I am exclusively engaged in the goods? Sir, for this it is 40, for this it is 40, for this it is 40, but for this it is 10. So your threshold limit would be reduced to 10 lakh. All these states need to be remembered with the name. Yes, absolutely correct. You have to remember these names. You have to remember these names, that for goods or services, any combination, the limit would be 40 lakhs. Here the limit would be, 10 lakh. Here the limit would be 20 lakhs. And here, if exclusively engaged in the goods, then 40, otherwise 20. If the supply the goods written by the recipient, then it shall also be included in the turnover. Answer is no. If I am supplying the goods, Ankur, to you, when you are returning the goods, I will issue the credit note. Then it will not be added in my aggregate turnover. It is a reversal of sale. So it will not be added in my aggregate turnover. I hope it is clear. Everyone is clear. So kindly confirm. Let me ask one question. This chart in front of you, let me ask one question given in the institute material. I am taking one or two questions from the material itself. Kindly give the answer. The chart is in front of you. You all give the answer. I am asking the question. Question number 5. You can write down that I am reading the question number 5 for all the participants that is given in the study material. You all give the answer. Chart is in front of you. Prithviraj of the Assam is exclusively engaged in the intra-state supply of the shoes. Prithviraj of Assam is exclusively engaged in the intra-state supply of the shoes. His aggregate turnover is 22 lakhs. Please tell me whether he is required to take mandatory registration or not. Srinivas, I will definitely give the answer to your question. Just wait for 2 to 3 minutes. And Kartik Gupta, I have given the name only 4 states are special category. Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura. For that, it is 10 lakh. Otherwise, you can see the chart is in front of you. If if particular Prithviraj belongs to which state? Belongs to which state? Assam. Belongs to which state? Assam. Doing the business of shoes. So it is goods or services? Answer is it is goods. Exclusively in the goods, the turnover is 22 lakh. Whether is required to take registration? Whether is required to take registration? Why some participants are saying yes? Why some participants are saying yes? Answer would be no, because here, if I am exclusively engaged in the goods, the limit would be 40 lakhs. Limit would be 40 lakh, not required to take registration. Second part of this question, assume that everything is same. Now, if he is doing the business of, instead of the shoes, he is doing the business of pan masala. He is doing the business of pan masala. What would be your answer along with reasoning? See, reasoning is important. Why you are saying yes or no? Reasoning is important, by which I can understand why you are framing the answer yes or no. My question is, assume the Prithviraj doing the business in Assam is exclusively engaged in the business of pan masala. What would be the threshold? Whether he is required to take registration if his turnover is 22 lakhs. Whether he is required to take registration if the turnover is 22 lakhs. Important question. Whether he is to take registration if he is engaged in the pan masala business, he is doing that business of pan masala, whether he is required to take registration, answer become yes, he is required to take registration. Because in case he is doing the business of pan masala, tobacco, the notification says that limit of the 40 lakh would not be applicable. The limit of the 40 lakh would not be applicable. You cannot conclude. Jyoti, please do not do the mistake that if someone is doing the business of this ice cream pan masala, will the limit would be 10 lakh? This notification says 40 lakh ka limit would not be applicable. 40 lakh ka limit would not be applicable, meaning thereby normal limit either 10 or 20 depending upon the state. Is it clear? Limit would be 20 because he is doing the business in Assam. So the limit would be 20, not the 10, and therefore he has to take registration. I hope it is clear. Correct. Great. Now say, will your answer be same if he is doing the business? If he is doing the business in Assam as well as Manipur? If he is doing the business in Assam as well as Manipur, what would be the threshold limit? If he is doing the business in Assam as well as Manipur, what would be the threshold limit? If he is doing the business in Assam as well as Manipur, what would be the threshold limit? What is pan masala? Pan masala is the prohibited category or ineligible category of 40 lakhs. This notification says that limit of the 40 lakhs would not be applicable in case the ice cream, edible ice, whether contain coca or not, pan masala and tobacco. If someone is doing the business of pan masala ice cream, then would not we have the limit of the 40. The normal limit either 10 or 20 would be applicable. Karthik and Susil, I hope it is clear. The answer of my current question, kindly give me the answer for current question. If that person is doing the business in Assam and in Manipur, the turnover is 22 lakh, whether he need to take registration or not. whether you need to take registration or not. Manipur, Mizoram, whatever you understood. Mahadev, whether for Mizoram, whether for Manipur, the threshold limit is 10 or 20. Whether for Mizoram, Manipur, threshold limit is 20 or 10, the answer is 10 lakh. Answer is 10 lakh. If that particular Prithviraj is doing the business in Assam and Manipur, the limit would be reduced to 10 lakh. And in the current question, the aggregate turnover is 22. Therefore, he has to take registration. Great. So everyone is giving the reasoning. That is really good. Everyone is along with answer, yes or no. They are giving the reasoning. That is appreciable. Because when you have the habit of doing the reasoning, you will definitely write in the exams. And by that reason, you will receive the correct answer. You will get the correct answer. Or you will get the good marks. Sneha, aggregate turnover is 22 lakhs in this case, and you are saying the limit would be 10 lakh. So I can say aggregate turnover exceed the prescribed threshold limit, registration required. Karthik is asking if the supplier is exclusively engaged in the exempt supply. Just wait. We are coming to section 23, Karthik. We are coming to section 23. You will receive the answer in the section 23, first clause. Somesh, I have never told the word, I have never used the word, they are making the supply from Assam to Manipur. Here I am not using the word interstate. I am not using the word interstate. I am saying that in the Manipur is doing the business, in Assam is also doing the business. Why 10 lakh, Sushil? Because Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura, the threshold limit is 10 lakh. So if someone is doing the business in these states, Manipur as well as let's say Jammu and Kashmir or Arunachal, what is the lower limit? 10 lakh. So the threshold limit would be 10 lakh. Is it okay? Miss Kaur. So can we say that when a person carrying the business in MTMN state and any other, then will ignore other state, or rather ignore or consider, doesn't matter. If anyone is doing the business in any of the state plus other state, the limit would be 10 lakh. Sure, Amritpal, absolutely. Understanding is absolutely correct. Moving to the section 22, next clause. Moving to the section 22, next clause. But before that, I need to give the answer. Assam is 20 and what is Manipur? Akash, understand once again. Understand once again. Everyone understand once again. I'm repeating the sentence once again. If one is doing the business in multiple states, if any person is doing the business in multiple states, including special category state, the aggregate, the threshold limit would be 10 lakh. Akash, if any person is doing the business in multiple states, including special category, the threshold limit would be 10 lakh. You can see this particular Akash for you. If a person with place of the business in different state across India has one branch in the special category state from which it makes the taxable supply, the threshold limit will be reduced to 10 lakh. All the participants. This particularly you make a note. This is an important one. Now coming, someone has asked the difference between aggregate turnover and turnover in the state or UT. Why these are special categories? Sir, that is being defined in the Indian Constitution, Bharat ka Samvidhan. One has asked the question, aggregate turnover versus turnover in the state. What is the meaning of aggregate turnover? We have discussed. Aggregate turnover means turnover include exempt taxable export on all India basis. But if I'm using the word turnover in the state, I will say same, all taxable supply, all exempt supplies, all taxable supplies, all exempt supplies, but within the state. Srinivas sir, Gadicherla Srinivas, Mr. Srinivas, are you there? You have asked the question that aggregate turnover and turnover the state. See, aggregate turnover means you are calculating on pan-India basis. If I'm doing the business in 3 states, I make the total of all the 3 states. That is my aggregate turnover. But what is the meaning of turnover in the state? Turnover in the state means the turnover of that state. But in that turnover, I will include taxable supplies. I will include exempt supplies also. What is whether it is being used anywhere? Whether it is being used anywhere? Answer is yes, in the composition levy. In the composition levy, I hope you have discussed that in the composition levy, you need to pay the tax a certain percentage of the turnover in the state or UT. Aggregate turnover concept we are using in the registration, and also we will use some more chapter. But turnover in the state or UT, this concept is being used in the composition chapter. That how much you need to pay the taxes. Like if he's doing the trading or manufacturing, 1% of the turnover in the state or UT, or restaurant 5%, and one special case 6%. Let's move to the section 22, next subsection 2. Very simple. Every person who on the day immediately preceding the day is registered or hold a license under an existing law. For example, Mr. A is registered in the VAT, registered in the custom, excise, service tax, any other taxes prevailing or before GST. Then they have to take registration under the GST. We are talking about situation on 1 July 2017. We are not talking about the current situation. We are talking about the situation of the migration, the date of conversion. 1 July 2017, when the GST was introduced, if you are registered in the pre-GST era, then you need to take registration in the GST. But after that, if you feel that your aggregate turnover not exceed the threshold limit, definitely you can have the option to surrender. You have the option to surrender, but at least one time you have to take registration. Clear, na? Subsection 3 is talking about where a business is carried on by a taxable person registered under the Act is transferred, whether on account of the succession or otherwise, to another person as a going concern basis. Appointed day is 1 July 2017. The day when the GST was introduced. When a business is being carried on by a taxable person registered under this Act is transferred, whether on account of the succession or otherwise, to another person on a going concern basis. Going concern means the business will not be closed, the business will be continued. Mr. A has transferred the business to Mr. B on a going concern basis, means now the business would be carried on by Mr. B instead of Mr. A. He shall be liable to be registered with effect from the date of such transfer. Means Mr. B has to take registration according to 22 subsection 3. Subsection 4, notwithstanding anything contained in 1 and 3, in case of the transfer pursuant to the scheme or arrangement of amalgamation, merger, pursuant to the order of the High Court, Tribunal, or otherwise, the transferee, new entity, shall be liable to be registered with effect from the date on which ROC issued the certificate. giving effect to such order of High Court or Tribunal. Person include individual also. Here the meaning of on account of the succession, you are talking about this person. This person, it can be person which is not defined in the income tax, person which is defined in the GST. It can be individual. It can be individual. Any question? It's very simple. So I like to highlight only one circular 96, that particular sentence I like to highlight. Then answer to the use. It says that person business is transferred whether on account of the succession or any other reason, including transfer, change in the ownership of the business due to the death of the sole proprietor. Mr. A was doing the business, A expire because of the COVID. Now his son, Mr. B, like to continue that business. This transfer of the business ownership, transferring the ownership on account of the death of the sole proprietor will also be considered as transfer of the business on account of the succession or otherwise, and Mr. B like to take registration mandatorily. Subsection 2 says, let me simply speak about subsection 2. If you are registered in the pre-GST era in any act, whether it is excise duty, whether it is custom service tax, VAT, CST, you have to take on the date of the appointed date, that is 1st July 2017, you need to migrate and you have to take registration in the GST. Rafiq bhai, I hope it is clear. Second, subsection 4 says that on account of the amalgamation and merger, company A has been amalgamated with company B, or XYZ Limited has been merged with another company. In case of the merger and amalgamation, the new entity which is being transferee has to take compulsory registration. The new entity has to take compulsory registration. Let me talk about once again that pursuant to the amalgamation or the merger of the two or more company, they, notwithstanding anything contained in case of the transfer pursuant to the scheme or arrangement of the amalgamation or merger, the transferee shall be liable to be registered. The transferee company shall be liable to be registered. The word person has been defined in the GST, not the artificial person, association of person, individual, HUF, or company. These are the person. Any other question? Please give the answer. Any other question? Please ask. Else kindly confirm is it clear. So let me read for the benefit of that question. Let me repeat again. What is the meaning of who has asked the question? I think someone has asked the question. What is the meaning of person? So person include individual, HUF, company, firm, LLP, association of the person, body of individuals, any corporation established under CGST, SGST, any body corporate, any cooperative societies, local authority, central government or state government, society, trust, and every artificial judicial person. Non falling with any of the above, that is a person. You can refer the definition given in the clause 84, section 2, clause 84. That is the definition of the person in the GST. Here they are not talking about the person which is defined in the income tax. The person means GST. The defined in the GST. We are not required to consider turnover. We are not required to consider turnover. No. It is mandatory. It is mandatory. Somesh, it is mandatory. You have to take registration. If both companies turnover less than the threshold, they still have to take registration mandatorily, because they are saying first need to take registration without considering the turnover, and then after that, if you think that your turnover will not exceed, you can surrender. Ankur, in the 22 subsection 1, in the 22 subsection 1, we are talking about, in the 22 subsection 1, we are talking about threshold limit. But in the 22.3, 22.4, we are not talking about the threshold. You have to take registration. Let me move fast, slightly fast, because we have to complete the chapter also. Certain part today and balance part tomorrow. Now, section 23. Section 23 says that you are not required to take registration. Section 23 says you are not required to take registration. When you are not required to take registration, person not liable for registration. See, it says that if person is exclusively engaged in the business of supplying the goods and or services which are not liable to tax or are wholly exempt from tax. Person engaged exclusively in the business of supplying the goods and or services not liable to tax or are wholly exempt from tax. See, Mr. A is doing the business of petrol pump, only supplying the petrol, not liable to tax, or supplying the milk which is completely exempted. Then in that case, whatever the turnover is of Mr. A, doesn't matter. He's having the turnover of 1 crore. Still, he is not required to take registration, because Mr. A is exclusively engaged in the exempted item or non-GST item. Next, if an agriculturist, to the extent of the supply of the produce out of the cultivation of land, if an agriculturist is supplying the goods which is being produced out of the cultivation of land, then again that agriculturist is not required to take registration. See, you might say that either because one is engaged exclusively in the supply of the exempted item, or those items which are not leviable to tax, then not required to take registration. Second, if agriculturist is there, he is supplying the goods produced out of the cultivation of land. Kheti badi karke. Cultivation of land means kheti badi. In that case, again, he is not required to take registration. Let's say if agriculturist is doing the business of dairy farming or stock breeding. In that case, if he is doing the business of goods which is not produced out of the cultivation of land, he has to take registration. First, if it is taxable, and second, if the aggregate turnover exceeds the threshold limit. Benefit of whom? Registered or non-benefit is to whom? Which benefit? Benefit to whom? Benefit to the unregistered person. So benefit, rather I should say, Rekha, see, you are deciding whether one has to take registration or not. You are deciding whether one has to take registration or not. So, if Mr. A is exclusively engaged in the goods, then he is relaxed, even though exempt supply is added in the aggregate turnover. Exempt supplies added in the aggregate turnover. But if someone is only doing the exempted item, then even though it exceeds the threshold limit, not required to take registration. Shivam, I hope you have received the answer I am talking about to you. If you write one time, that is also sufficient. Not try to repeat the question. If you ask the question once, it will be in front of me. I will definitely give the answer, as to be sure. Pooja, in case of the amalgamation or in case of the merger, two entities being merged, and say A and B merged, and they have merged, A and B has been merged and C entity has been formed. Then the C entity has to take registration. Or suppose company A has amalgamated with company B, and for the time being, company B is not registered, then company B has to take registration by virtue of the 22(4). Dairy farming taxable. I'm not talking about that. Suppose if they are doing the business of other than produce out of the cultivation of land, other than any product. See, if they are doing the business which is being produced out of the cultivation of land, not required to take registration. If they are doing the any other category of the business, even though he is an agriculturist, he has to take registration in the GST. No problem. No problem, Shiva. No problem. I will never skip till the time it is in front of me. You're right. One thing that's sufficient. Pooja, kindly confirm. Is it clear? Bharat, I cannot give the answer which product are taxable and which product are exempted. I cannot give the answer because GST tariff is so big, so vast. But I'm only saying if the product is exempted and one is dealing in the only exempted item not required to register. Pooja, kindly give the answer. Bharat, Srinivas, Akash, I hope it is clear now. Na? Voluntarily, anyone can take registration. Voluntarily, anyone can take registration. My turnover is not cross threshold limit. I am not liable to take registration. I am only engaged in the non-GST item. Still, I like to go for registration. Most welcome. No problem. On death of the father, the major son receive the property, and will the property be taxable in the GST? In the GST, you're talking about? In the GST, you're talking about? Previous, whether we are registered or not, after amalgamation and demerger, we should register, right, sir? The new entity I'm talking about, transferee, not the transferor. Not the transferor. Pooja, again like to confirm that we are talking about transferee, not the transferor. See, the new entity A has been amalgamated with B. Now, even before amalgamation, B was not registered. Correct, no problem. But after amalgamation, B has to take registration. If a person supplying the goods which is exempted from tax, then he is not liable to registration. But he want to do registration, can he? Yes. Voluntarily, anyone can take registration. There is no restriction at all. See, if one like to take registration voluntarily, no problem. So I hope answer is all question is answered. Yes, agriculturist want to take yes. Ayush, I have given the answer for both the question. Voluntarily, no problem. Whether you are engaged in exclusively engaged, non-GST, you can take registration. Mahadev, sir, agriculturist only HUF. The meaning of agriculturist has been defined. An individual or HUF. An individual or HUF who undertake the cultivation of land by own labor or by the labor of the family or by servant on base payable in cash or kind or by hired labor under personal supervision or the personal supervision of any member of the family. Company cannot be considered as agriculturist. Fine. Now the next important point. In section 23. In section 23, government has the power to issue the notification. Government has the power to issue the notification to exempt any other category also. To exempt from taking the registration. Now, these category you need to remember because in the big question might be there may be one line item belongs to this, or there can be the direct small questions. Akas, the point 1, section 22 and section 23, these two different things. 22 says if your aggregate turnover exceeds threshold limit, you need to take registration. No problem. But section 23 says if you are exclusively only engaged in the exempted, not required to take registration. Because see, normally think about now, what is the benefit of the government? If they will say that you have to take registration, whether they will give the text to the government, answer is no. So they are saying section 23 has been inserted and they are giving the relaxation. See, section 22 is there. Now they are saying if you are exclusively engaged in the goods, not required to take registration. I hope it is clear. So you can say if I am engaged in the supply of the petrol, correct? My turnover is 1 crore. Do I need to take registration? No. Along with petrol, I am supplying the lubricant oil, say rupees 100. In the year, I am selling the lubricant only of rupees 100. Do I need to take registration? Answer is yes. Because now I am not exclusively engaged in the supply of the non-taxable item or exempted item. Not required to visit www.gst.gov. Mansa, not required to visit. Only for your understanding purpose, you can visit anywhere you want, any book you can refer. Otherwise, my view, institute material is more than sufficient. So elaborative, so explained very well, nothing to go anywhere. Aita, I can again repeating that tariff is so long, I cannot say what is exempted, what is taxable. Every item is not possible to remember. CT means central tax. CT means central tax. See, the notification are central tax rate notification, central tax, integrated tax IT, integrated tax rate ITR. So these are the shortcuts. Earlier not exempted. Ankur, what is the reason you are asking this question? Earlier which are not exempted, now it is exempted. Why? What is the reason of asking this question? So you give me the reasoning, I will give the example. So I am unable to link why you are asking this question. I will give definitely one example to you. Person making only reverse charge supplies. Very, very important. Very, very important. Government has issued the notification that saying if one is engaged exclusively in the supply which is covered under RCM. Try to understand this word. They are talking about in the hand of the supplier. Mr. A is an advocate. Mr. A is an advocate. He is making the supply to XYZ, any party. He is an advocate. An advocate is covered under RCM. Advocate is covered under RCM, right? Advocate is covered under RCM. Now, whether Mr. A is required to take registration, let's say his turnover is 1 crore. Answer is no, because of this relaxation, because of this notification. Because of this notification, if outward supplies, completely outward supplies covered under reverse charge, not required to take registration, even though whatever the aggregate turnover. Bharat, wait for some time. Wait for some time. You are asking the question with respect to 22. We'll give the answer, but let me complete section 23. Let me complete section 23. If you have any question with respect to 23, I will answer at the same time. For other sections, I will go back and then explain. Yes. Second, if Person making only reverse charge supply, then not required to take registration, whatever the threshold, even though whatever the limit is there, whatever the turnover is there, if outward supply is covered under RCM, means the supplier is not required to pay the tax. The recipient will pay the tax. Suppose Mr. A is a transporter. Mr. A is a transporter and his supplies is covered under reverse charge. Recipient will pay the tax. Then Mr. A, even though aggregate turnover is 1 crore, not required to take registration. Second, person making the interstate supply of services. Interstate supply the services up to 20 lakh. When I will explain the section 24, the first item is interstate taxable supplies. Now, the only point, whether it is goods or services, to be read with section 23 along with section 23. See, if one is engaged in the supply of the services, whether inter or intra, he is not required to take registration up to 20 lakh. Wait for some time. This point I have to read along with section 24. This point I have to read along with section 24. Then it will have the better clarity. Section 24. Section 24, first point, it says that compulsory registration. It says that compulsory registration, if person making the interstate taxable supplies, if person making the interstate taxable supplies, they are talking about only supply, then he has to take registration. See, what is the section 24? Try to understand. Section 24 is talking about those circumstances in which one has to take compulsory registration. Even though whatever the threshold limit is, even though he is ₹1 turnover, he has to take compulsory registration. Devakar question is not coming. Please explain Devakar manufacturing company. Isa, you are talking about this GST. I am not able to correlate your question. Person making the interstate taxable supplies of goods or services, prima facie, it is not clear that whether they are only talking about the goods or services. Section 24 is covering those 12 circumstances in which you have to take compulsory registration, ignore the threshold limit, ignore the turnover, in which I'm talking about the first clause. Person making interstate taxable supplies, that's it. So the question come into your mind that whether they are talking about the goods or they are talking about the services or both. Prima facie, if I see the standalone section 24, it says that supply, it means it is goods, it is services, both are clubbed. But this point has to be read along with section 23. Now I am reading the section 23, that particular clause. Person making the interstate supplies of the taxable services, person making the interstate supply the taxable services up to 20 lakh, he is being relaxed from registration, exempt from registration. So means if A is making the supply interstate and he is engaged in the services, he is not required to take registration till 20 lakhs. If he is engaged in the supply the goods and he is doing interstate, it will come under section 24 and he has to take compulsory registration, ignore the turnover, ignore the threshold limit. So what could be the possibility? What could be the possibility? Let me talk about the possibility that suppose Mr. A is exclusively only supplying the goods within the state, then you will say the limit would be 40 lakhs. Correct. If he's supplying interstate, then the limit would be 0. If he's engaged only services, the limit would be 20 lakhs. And if he's supplying interstate, again the limit would be 20 lakhs. Fine, fine. Let me give the answer to the multiple question first. Give the answer to the multiple question. We'll come back to this chart once again. Akash, exempted include. I hope it is clear. Asa Mansa, is this sufficient study estimate? Answer unquote. Can you give an example of this which are earlier exempted? Now it is earlier not exempted. Now it is exempted. State and central tax Bharat. If a person registered, Bharat will give the answer. Just wait for some time. Sneha, sir, in exam you have to compulsory write section number. No, not required. Provision to the answer. Provision is more than sufficient. Raghavan, sir, but for paying the tax under RCM, the person has to take registered and then only pay that. Absolutely correct. We are talking about the supplier. See, Raghavan, suppose I am advocate. Raghavan, I am advocate and you are my client. Then in the section 23, they are talking about me. That whatever my outward supplies, I am not required to take registration. You are talking about yourself. You will pay the tax, and how you will pay the tax? You will take mandatory registration. Correct. So we are talking about both different. In the section 23, they are talking about Arun. In the section 24, or you are talking about Raghavan, yourself. That the recipient will pay the tax under RCM. Therefore, he has to take compulsory registration. I hope it is clear. The participant to whom I am giving the answer, if it is clear, please confirm also so that it would be clear to me as well. The question is being answered. We already knew that aggregate turnover will not exceed. See, if Shreya, if you know that your aggregate turnover not exceed, then not required to surrender. If you feel that now it will not be, now there would be no turnover. Suppose there would be no turnover or 10 lakh, 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakh, below 20, below 40, below 10. As the case may be, then you may have you can surrender if you want. This is not mandatory, it is optional. It is up to you. Acha, you are giving say page 7.21. Oh. On page 7.21, Divakar Manufacturing. I have the Dolan company located in Delhi. Fine. Now let me read this particular question. Who is asked the question? Isa. Money current transport is a GTA. Engaged in the supplying the GTA service liable to tax under reverse charge, since tax is paid on the GTA service at the rate of 5% in the given case. Therefore, money current transport is a GTA is required, is making the outward supply which is covered under reverse charge. Thus, it is exempted from registration as it is engaged exclusively in the making supplies, tax on which liable to be paid under reverse charge basis. Fine. Next part. Further, money current transport supply the said services to Divakar Manufacturing, whose aggregate turnover does not exceed the applicable threshold limit. However, since Divakar has to pay the tax on GTA, it's required to obtain the registration mandatorily irrespective of its turnover. Now, second part, see, thank you so much. It's a good example, and same question is being asked by Raghavan as well. Now, here we are talking about section 23 and we are talking about section 24, clause 3. See, make it clear. You can refer this example that money current transporter is a supplier. Money current transporter is a supplier of the GTA service, is supplying the GTA service which is exclusively in the hand of the supplier. Money current transporter supplying the GTA service which is covered under RCM. Therefore, money current transporter, irrespective of any turnover, he is not required to take registration. Correct? The first part. In the second part, they are touching the section 24.3. They are linking with section 24 clause 3. The recipient of any RCM transaction. See, money current transporter is giving the service to the Divakar Manufacturing. Divakar Manufacturing is the recipient. he has to pay that, the company has to pay the tax under RCM. And by virtue of the 24(3), recipient has to take mandatory registration. Here they are talking about, since Divakar has to pay the tax on the GTS service being a recipient under RCM, therefore it is required to obtain mandatory registration by virtue of the section 24 clause 3, irrespective of the turnover. Please confirm, is it clear? So let me show you section 24 clause 3 also. Let me show you section 24 clause 3 as well. This particular part. Divakar Manufacturing. So Divakar Limited, private company, it is covered in the clause 3 and therefore they have to take mandatory registration. I hope it is clear. Raghavan, your question has been again repeated. I hope you have more clarity. Sakti, what if the SSC done interested supply the service and interested supplies the goods? So 20 lakhs. See, always see lower of the below two. You can make any combination. Interested supply the service, limit would be 20 lakhs. Interested supply the goods 40, whichever is lower, 20 lakhs. If interested supply the service more than 20, then registration. Akash, absolutely correct, because it exceeds the threshold limit. Yes, obviously you have to take registration. And again, coming to the question of Sakti, you are saying interstate supply the goods as well as services interstate. So can I say that person is exclusively engaged in the goods? If one is doing the business within the state goods and interstate services, can we say that person is only engaged in the goods? No. Therefore, the limit would be 20. He has to take registration once that 20 will be crossed. This exemption of the 20 lakh overhead section 24, which 20 lakhs? Yes. Both parallel. Because section 24 overriding 22. Section 24 overriding 22, they will go parallelly. So if 23 is giving the relaxation, that is accepted by the section 24. So let me take a break. Quick break of 10 minutes. Let me take a quick break of 10 minutes. Then we'll start again from here, section 24 clause 2. So, Mr. Rasu, Thank you. Now we are talking about third category. We are talking about section 23, the relaxation from the registration, wherein we have discussed the two notification that first, if person who is supplying the outward supplies completely covered under RCM, then he is relaxed from registration. We have discussed one practical case study as well. Second, that in case of the services, he can provide the service within the state or even interstate also, the limit of the registration 20 lakh would remain applicable. This particular clause we have compared with section 24 first clause and try to understand in detail. And also this point, we have also compared with the section 24 third clause that in case of the RCM, recipient has to take mandatory registration. Recipient has to take mandatory registration. The supplier is relaxed from taking the registration. These 2 points we have completed. Now moving to the third point, that a person who is making the interstate taxable supplies of notified handicraft, then the limit would be 20 lakhs. It's not covered under mandatory registration. Section 24 first clause says that interstate supplies of the taxable goods will fall under mandatory registration. But what is the exception to that? If someone is engaged in the notified handicraft goods, person who is making the interstate taxable supplies of notified handicraft goods or notified goods which is being made by the craftsman predominantly by hand, even though some machine may also be used in the process, then one can make the supply of these goods. One can make the supply of these goods. The limit, threshold limit of 20 or 10 would remain applicable. Now let's move to the, this particular relaxation is also applicable to the casual taxable person. This particular relaxation is also applicable to the casual taxable person. A casual taxable person making the interstate taxable supplies of notified handicraft goods, then limit would remain up to 20. It's not under mandatory. 20 or 10 as the case may be. If a special category state, then limit would be 10 lakhs. We are moving to the section 24. See, first point, clear. Second point is clear. Casual taxable person making the taxable supplies. First, you might have the question, what is the meaning of casual taxable person? Let's say Mr. Avinash is registered in Maharashtra. He like to come to Delhi and participate in the trade fair from where he like to make a taxable supplies. Repeating the example again, Avinash of Maharashtra registered in Maharashtra, doing the business in Maharashtra, but he like to also make the taxable supplies in Delhi only for the 5 days. He like to participate in the trade fair and from where he like to make a taxable supplies. Without registration in the GST, he cannot make the supply. Then what is the option with him? Either he has to take regular category of the registration, which is not feasible. So government has given one more category, that is casual taxable person. If Indian resident is coming to any other state from where he does not, he like to make a taxable supplies, but he does not have any fixed establishment, in that case, he can take the registration under casual taxable person category. So casual taxable person category is again mandatory registration. What is the exception? The exception we have discussed. If they are providing the supply interstate handicraft goods, or they are providing the supply the notified goods, which is being made by craftsmen by hand, then the limit of the 20 lakhs or 10 lakh, as the case may be, would remain applicable. So we have discussed 3 categories. Next category is non-resident taxable person. Similar to the casual taxable person, the casual taxable person, the person is of Indian resident. in the non-resident taxable person, let's say Mr. John from USA like to come in India, in Delhi, and like to participate in Pragati Maidan Trade Fair, from where he like to make a taxable supplies. But the problem is this Mr. John does not have any fixed establishment in Delhi. He has the option to take registration under NRTP category, the casual taxable or NRTP. We are going to discuss in the next class some more detail. Next is e-commerce operator. So no question. Everything is okay. I haven't seen any question. Is it clear? Is it clear? E-commerce operator. Now try to understand with the help of example. Ajay is doing the business, and he is doing the business through Amazon or Flipkart. He is supplying the goods to Avinash. Ajay is supplying the goods to Avinash through Amazon. First, we are talking about to Ajay. Ajay has to take mandatory registration. Ajay has to take mandatory registration if he is providing the supply of the goods. If Ajay is supplying the goods through e-commerce operator, I'm using the word through e-commerce operator, then he has to take compulsory registration. Who? Ajay. Second, if he is making the supply of the services through e-commerce operator, then the limit of 20 lakh would be applicable. It means Ajay not required to take registration till the threshold limit of the 20 lakh is not crossed. Third point, Amazon, Flipkart, on which there is a section 52. According to the section 52, these e-commerce operator need to collect the tax collection at source under GST. I'm talking about the TCS of GST. The third point, Amazon, Flipkart has to take compulsory registration under the TCS category so that they can collect the TCS on the supplies made by Ajay to Avinash. 3 points we have discussed. If Ajay is supplying the goods through e-commerce operator, Ajay has to take mandatory registration. Second point, if Ajay is making the supply the service, then he is relaxed till 20 lakhs. Third point, that e-commerce operator has to collect the TCS under section 52. Therefore, these e-commerce operator need to take compulsory registration under section 52. Now, the last fourth example. Restaurant registered at Swiggy and supplying to, let's say, Ajay. Restaurant is owned by Bimal. Ajay has given the order over Swiggy to restaurant. Restaurant is giving the foods to Swiggy, and Swiggy is making the supply to the Ajay. Now, in this case, who is liable to pay the tax? In this supply, who is liable to pay the tax? Restaurant or Swiggy? The answer is Swiggy. Why? There is a GST, there is a provision 9 subsection 5 of CGST Act which talks about the 4 transaction. I'm giving example, but in the restaurant services or transportation of passenger services or hotel accommodation services or small carpenting and plumbing services like urban clerk. If these services are provided through e-commerce operator, if these services are provided through e-commerce operator, then e-commerce operator, according to the 9.5, e-commerce operator would be liable to pay the GST on this transaction. Who is actual supplier? Who is actual supplier? These entity, restaurant or actual supplier. But who will pay the tax on this transaction? ECO. Who will pay the tax on this transaction? ECO. By virtue of the 9 subsection 5, this e-commerce operator has to take registration and pay the GST as if the transaction, as if the supply is made by him. Repeating again, once again, normally we have discussed this provision that in case of the Ajay is making the supplies of the goods through e-commerce operator, then who is liable to pay the tax? Ajay. Mandatory registration. Amazon, Flipkart, not liable to pay the tax. If Ajay is providing the services, limit of the 20 lakh would be applicable. Second, Amazon, Flipkart has to collect the TCS. Amazon, Flipkart has to collect the TCS under section 52. Please note one thing, this TCS would not be applicable in the 9 subsection 5. What is the 9 subsection 5? If 4 type of the services are provided through e-commerce operator, if the 4 category of the services are provided through e-commerce operator, then these e-commerce operator mediator, who is not the supplier, will be considered as deemed supplier and pay the GST. Ola, Uber, Oyo Rooms, Urban Club, Swiggy means transportation of passenger, hotel accommodation, small carpenting, plumbing, and restaurant services. These services which is being rendered through e-commerce operator on this transaction, the supplier, actual supplier will not pay the tax. Actual supplier will not pay the tax. The tax will be paid by these e-commerce operator, and in this case, no TCS. So therefore, they are saying the Swiggy, etc., have to take mandatory registration in the GST. Let me tick the point which we have discussed. Let me tick the point, whatever the point we have discussed, then I will come to the question answer. See, first point, every e-commerce operator on this section 52 is applicable. They have to take registration under the TCS category like Amazon, Flipkart. Person who supply the goods, I have given the example like Ajay is making the supply the goods, then they have to take mandatory. If he is supplying the services, then till 20 lakhs. Then we have discussed the point 9.5. Person who are required to pay the tax. These are e-commerce operator. These are e-commerce operator who are required to pay the tax under section 9 subsection 5. They have to take compulsory registration. So these 3 points we have discussed. For restaurant, will it be RCM? No RCM. If given to C, supplies by restaurant, supplies, let's say Bikaner Wala. Let's say Bikaner Wala is giving the goods or food to the Swiggy, and Swiggy is making the supply to Ajay. Ajay will receive the tax invoice by Swiggy. Swiggy will raise the tax invoice. So what about that transaction between Bikaner Wala and Swiggy? It's an exempt transaction, no taxes. You cannot say it is an RCM. You cannot say it is an RCM. Because for the RCM, the transaction has to be notified in the 9.3 or 9.4. Is it okay? Everyone kindly confirm. Tell the point number 5. Everyone is okay. I hope everyone is okay. Srinivas is saying, kindly explain the example number 3. Point number 3. See, point 3 we have already discussed now. If a recipient is liable to pay the tax under RCM, like I am providing the GTA service to Mr. Ajay. So Ajay has to take compulsory registration. I am providing the legal services because I am advocate. The recipient has to take mandatory registration and discharge the GST liability. So means even through ECO is interested of the services, then section 23 will see. Yes. For yes. For ECO, Somesh, for ECO in the section 23, they have issued another notification. They have issued one more notification that even if the services has been given through e-commerce operator, even if the services has been given through e-commerce operator, service provider, they have issued the notification number 66 on 15th November 2017, central tax. They are saying if services is up to rupees 20 lakh rendered through e-commerce operator, not required to compulsory take registration. Fine. Let me move to the another point. Point number 6. Like TCS, there is a provision under section 51 that government has to deduct the TDS at the rate of 2%. Government has to deduct the TDS at the rate of 2%. Government has to deduct the TDS at the rate of 2% on the taxable supplies. For that, government has to take compulsory registration in the TDS category. So the person 6 is saying, so the point number 6 is saying that person like government who is required to deduct the TDS, they have to take compulsory registration. Now, in case of the principal and agent, if one person who is making the taxable supplies on behalf of another taxable person, he has to take compulsory registration. ISD, input service distributor. What is the input service distributor? What is the input service distributor? If head office, point 2 and point 5, please explain. Point 5 already explained in detail, Sakti. Sakti, point 5, I have already explained in detail. Point 2, casual taxable person. I would request, please visit the video again because we have the short time. I have to complete the chapter. I request, please visit the video. In case if still you have the doubt, you can ask in the next class because the next class is also on the registration chapter. Person who make the taxable supplies that we have discussed, head office and branches, HO and branches. Suppose there is a branch 1, there is a branch 2, there is a branch 3. And head office, let's say, arranging the auditor, statutory auditor. So the auditor will do the audit of the branches as well as head office. Correct. Auditor will do the audit of the head office as well as branches. So I can say this is a common service which is being given to the branches as well. So the ITC of that particular audit bill will be received by HO. The bill would be received by HO. HO can transfer the ITC to the branches. For transferring the ITC, HO has to take registration under the ISD category. Head office has to take the registration under the ISD category. Input service distributor, whether or not separately registered under this act. See, head office, even though they are separately registered under the regular category, but if they like to transfer the credit, they like to transfer, distribute which credit? The credit of input service can be distributed to the branches, and therefore for that category, they have to register under the ISD, even though they are registered separately. Next category, OIDAR. There is one question, Shreyasa. If we pay phone or electricity bill through Paytm, then whether they also have to take registration to pay the GST? Because if I am paying the phone or electricity through Paytm or any online platform, so I am making inward supplies. So for me, it is an inward supplies, and registration would be only on the outward supplies. Registration would be only on the outward supplies. Mode of the payment is not a services. Let's say distribution of the electricity or telephone bill. So if someone is making the payment online, making the payment cash, or making the payment through any other mode, so that is not the supply for the electricity to the telephone company. So if you are asking, Shreya, if you are asking from the customer point of view, it is not outward, so there is no question, the registration. If you are talking about the telephone company, again, I can say it is not the mode of services, and that is only mode of payment. Is it clear? Or if not, then kindly ask contribution. Every person supplying OIDAR, online information database access retrieval service, from a place outside India to a person in India other than registered person. Example, Netflix. Example, GoDaddy. Example, Facebook. Example, WhatsApp. You can take any example. Example, Google. Example, Gmail. Let's say I'm taking one Netflix subscription. I am unregistered person in the GST. I am not registered. I just subscribe to the Netflix and I have made the payment, let's say rupees 150. Netflix company is located out of India. The Netflix company is located out of India, providing the online information database access retrieval services OIDAR to the Indian party who is not registered. Then liability shifted to the supplier, that OIDAR company, to take compulsory registration. You might ask, what is OIDAR? You might have the doubt, what is OIDAR? OIDAR means the service which has been rendered online with the minimum human intervention, which cannot be rendered without the presence of internet, which cannot be provided without the presence of information technology, and which contain very minimum human intervention. It is automated. It is automated. That is called as OIDAR. Suppose I need to buy the one domain from GoDaddy. So I can just go to the website, make the payment, and buy that domain. Similarly, I can buy the Netflix subscription in the same manner, and I can watch the recording or I can watch the videos, etc. So what I am doing, I am doing the transaction of OIDAR. Being a recipient, I am Indian party and not registered in the GST. In that case, liability shifted to the supplier, these company, to take mandatory registration in the GST. Now, if you ask, or you might be thinking that if OIDAR company located out of India, if in India the recipient is registered person, it will cover under RCM as an import of service. And if the recipient is in India, is unregistered person, then by virtue of the section 24, the liability shifted to the OIDAR company to take mandatory registration and pay the GST. I hope it is clear. Request everyone kindly confirm on these two parts that whether both the provision is clear. If the recipient in India is a registered party, what happened to the taxes? If in India it is an unregistered party, then how that liability would be shifted to the OIDAR? Kindly ask the question if you have, or confirm, is it clear? Or last such other class of the person as may be notified by the government. So government can notify. Concept of CTP and NRTP, rest to be sure, we'll discuss in the next class. Achha, you are asking about whether Paytm or phone pay have to pay the tax directly as they are acting as a mediator and providing the services. Okay. Shreya, you are talking about Paytm company. The Paytm company, say for example, they are providing the service of online payment and charging 100 rupees. So they will charge GST on that and on the forward charge basis. And this 18 rupees, whatever the taxes is there, they will pay the tax to the government directly. Paytm company charging to you, let's say 100 rupees. and they will charge the GST also 18%, and this 18 would be paid by the government, would paid by the Paytm to the government. So it is a supply of the service. It is a supply of the service. Is recipient will take registration specifically for receiving goods services. No. Let me talk about once again. See, Sushil, what is OIDR? It is clear now. What is OIDAR? Is it clear? First tell me what is OIDAR. Is it clear? Shreya, I hope it is clear. Your question, you also confirm. What is OIDR? Is it clear? Like GoDaddy. This company are located out of India. And we can do the transaction without any human intervention online. Everything is automated. I'm saying that this ninth number point is saying if service is being received by unregistered person in India, if the service is being received by unregistered person in India, then government is saying that OIDAR company has to take registration. See, OIDAR, what is the meaning? That the service has been rendered through internet, automated, no human intervention. Suppose, Sushil, you like to purchase one domain, like sushilbarik.com. Will you call anybody? So you can simply go to the GoDaddy and purchase. If you like the domain, you will make the payment and purchase. What is that services? Service rendered by the GoDaddy of domain. What is that? OIDAR. If I like to buy the Netflix subscription, I can simply go visit the website and buy the subscription. What is that? OIDAR. If I like to, let's say, make the advertisement on the Facebook, I simply log into the Facebook on my page, click on the advertisement and make the payment. I can do the advertisement. So all these services which are automated is OIDAR. Now, OIDAR, there may be the two possibilities. The company located out of India providing the service in India to the unregistered. Section 24 says that liability shifted to these OIDAR, GoDaddy, Facebook, and they will pay the tax under forward charge basis. So see, Isa and Shreya, kindly confirm. Payment is not OIDR. Payment is not OIDR. Wait. Akash, might be your question is correct. Kindly ask another question. What is your main question which you like to ask? So the online payment is also OIDR. You are asking that payment, online payment is also OIDR, is it? Akash, your question is online payment. These mechanisms like Bharat Pay, Phone Pay, Paytm, these are things. Is it OIDR? Answer is yes. If it is OIDR, then what is the next question? CTP can also get the exemption of 20 lakhs limit under section 24 only when. See, Pooja, CTP can also get exemption of 20 lakhs limit under section 24 only when, point number one, if they are providing the services. Limit of, the CTP can get the limit only when they are providing the handicraft goods or goods which are made by the craftsman, notified goods which are made by the craftsman. Only for that they can get the exemptions. They can have the limit of the 20 lakhs. Sir, two question. If OIDR is unregistered, become registered, then recipient will pay the tax under RCM or OID under forward charge. If IDR unregistered, see, if OIDR is registered or unregistered, if they are located out of India and the recipient in India is registered, always RCM. Second, so all goods supplied through ECO require mandatory registration. All goods supplies, absolutely correct. Prabhas, absolutely correct. All goods supplies through ECO mandatory, assuming taxable goods. Buying tickets of match outside India from a company outside India is also covered in OIDAR if it is online routed. If it is completely online, then answer is yes. You are saying buying OIDAR outside India from a company outside India. So now the question is correct. Hitesh, your question is correct. Now you need to understand the place of the supply concept. And then you will understand. Then you will understand in case of the event, there is a section 13 applicable of IGST Act. In case of the event, so you will understand that section 13 is talking about in case of the event held outside India, place of the supply is also out of India. So in that case, the taxability would not be there. Hitesh, taxability would not be there because location of supplier and place of the supply both are outside India. There would be no taxability. Here we are talking about that service is being received by Indian person. For example, purchase the ticket for event in India. Purchase the ticket for event in India. But again, there is some controversy. There is some more discussion required. See, if I'm saying whether event, sir, see, what is the event? Whether event is online, whether event is automated, whether event is there is no human intervention. In that case, you can say it is OIDR. Or if, say, for example, you are taking the classes, and for which there is a method of payment online. So taking the physical classes, you can't say that simply if the payment method is made online, you can treat the transaction as OIDAR. Yes, Ayush, you can. What is the OIDR supplied to the registered person? Then recipient will pay the tax under RCM. Recipient registered will pay the tax under RCM. If Zerodha providing service, is it OIDR? Yes, it is OIDR. See, if everything is online, Demat account, everything is online, then OIDAR. It can be online gaming, it can be online movies, cinema, everything which is online, recorded lectures can also be OIDAR. So there can be the multiple examples. Let's move to the another part. I hope it is clear to all. If it is written that it is only for knowledge purpose, then obviously not relevant for exam point of view. Now next point. So it is a one circular of liability to registered in respect of the service provided by commission agent as per APMC Act, agriculture produce. So I would request, please read the circular. It is self-explanatory. In case any doubt, you may ask the question in the next class. Purely online services over the internet, no or very minimal human intervention. Automated process will be online. So YouTube, we are watching the YouTube, and suppose YouTube is taking the amount, that is also OIDR services. Okay, we'll do the practical question. 1 second. Let me talk about the section 25. Let me talk about next 15 minutes. Next 15 minutes or 10 minutes, we will discuss about section 25, and then we'll have the quick revision of last 10 minutes. As usual, we are doing. Section 25 is procedure for registration. Every person who is liable to be registered either under section 22 or section 24 shall apply for registration in every state or union territory in which is liable to take registration. Within 30 days. So what is the time limit to take registration? Sir, 30 days. From the date on which he become liable to register in such manner and such condition as may be prescribed, provided that a casual taxable person or non-resident taxable person. See, a casual taxable person and non-resident taxable person has to make an application 5 days in advance. See, normally, if you are required to take registration either by virtue of the 22 or section 24, You have to make an application within 30 days. 30 days will be started from which date? The date of liability. In case of casual taxable person or non-resident taxable person, you cannot start the business. You cannot start the business without obtaining the GST registration. So in case of casual taxable person or non-resident taxable person, the registration has to be obtained 5 days in advance. A registration has to be obtained 5 days in advance. You have to make an application at least 5 working days. Now, second point, suppose if you are having the business in special category state, SEZ, special economic zone, okay, or SEZ Act, sorry, not a special category, special economic. You are doing the business, one unit in SEZ and one unit is out of SEZ. Mr. A is doing the business, one in Noida SEZ and one is out of Noida SEZ. So if any person is doing the business having one unit in a special economic zone and one unit outside that zone, then have to take a separate registration for SEZ. Person seeking the registration under this act shall be granted a single registration in the state or UT, provided that a person having the multiple place of the business in the state or UT may be granted a separate registration subject to such condition and restriction. Point number 1. If I am doing the business in UP, let's say one location in Kanpur, one location is in Lucknow, can I, whether I have to take mandatory 2 registration? No. You can have one registration and add as an additional place of the business second registration. Sorry, I have wrongly used the word. I have wrongly used the word Kushi. Special category state and special economic not the same. Please, wrongly I have used the word. So please treat special economic zone. We are talking about if you are having the unit in SEZ, you have to obtain the separate registration for SEZ. Nothing to do or no linking with the special category and the special economic zone. Correct. Next point, that if I have the one registration and can add as an additional place to the business any other place to the business in the state. Second point, if I want, now it is my choice that I like to take separate registration for every additional place of the business or not. If I want, I can go for the separate registration for additional place of the business within the same state, even though my business is same. Repeating again. First point, I am having 2 places of the business in same state UP. Do I need to mandatorily have to get 2 registration? No. You can have one and within that you can add both address. Second point, if I want, can I take a second separate registration within the state? Yes, it is optional at the end of the supplier. It is option with the supplier. Supplier want one registration. Yes, if want separate registration, allowed. Only point within the state, if one location is in SEZ and one is outside, then they have to take compulsory 2 separate registration for SEZ and for out of SEZ. As discussed earlier, if one like to go voluntarily, 25 subsection 3 allow, you can take voluntarily registration, no problem. 25 subsection 4 talking about you are called as a distinct person if you have the one registration and if you have the one PAN and multiple registration. Mr. Avinash has one permanent account number, but he's doing the business in Karnataka, he's doing the business in Kerala, Telangana, Maharashtra, Rajasthan. All these GST number would be separate because the GST number is the state-wise. All these number would be separate. Yes, it would be called as a distinct person for each other. It would be called as a distinct person for each other. Till now, is it clear? Any question, please ask. Till now, is it clear? Any question, please ask. The permanent account number, PAN number is mandatory in order to take the registration. But yes, there is One exception that if you like to take a registration, if you are government and you are taking the registration under section 51 for the purpose of the TDS, you can obtain this registration on the basis of the 10 instead of PAN. 10, tax deduction and collection account number issued under income tax. You can obtain the registration instead of PAN. You can obtain this section 51 registration by using the 10 number of income tax. Everyone is clear? Great. Now coming to the next point. Aadhaar authentication. Let's read one by one clause. Every registered person shall undergo authentication or furnish the proof of Aadhaar in such form and manner as may be prescribed. If Aadhaar number is not assigned, then shall be offered alternative mechanism, mean of identification. In case of failure to undergo Aadhaar authentication, then or proof of the position of Aadhaar number or furnishing the alternate viable mean of identification, registration allotted shall be deemed to be invalid or other provision of this act shall apply. So if you have applied for Aadhaar authenticated or as a alternate mean, if you fail, then it will be deemed that the registration is invalid. On and from the date of the notification, every individual shall, in order to be eligible for grant of the registration, undergo authentication or furnish the proof of the position in such manner as may be prescribed. Okay. Provided that if Aadhaar number is not assigned, then shall be offered alternate mechanism or alternate or viable mean of identification. So they are talking about Aadhaar authentication. On and from the date of the notification, every person other than individual, in order to be eligible for grant of the registration, undergo authentication or furnish the proof of position of Aadhaar. Now they are not talking about individual. It means they are talking about Karta, managing director, full-time director, such number of the partner, member of the managing committee, board of trustee, authorized representative, authorized signatory, such other class of the person as the government may, on the recommendation of the council, notify. Provided that such person or the class of the person have not been assigned the Aadhaar number, such person or the class of the person shall be offered alternate way. 6D. Provision of subsection 6A, 6B or D shall not apply to the person or class of the person or any state or UT as the government specified by notification. So it will not be applicable on some categories of the person. So we have to see the notification. For the purpose of this section, the expression Aadhaar number shall have the same meaning as assigned to it in the clause A of the section 2 of Aadhaar Act. Subsection 7 says that notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 6, non-resident taxable person may be granted registration on the basis of such other document like passport, visa, etc. See, in case of the non-resident taxable person, Aadhaar authentication cannot be made mandatory, and therefore they would provided the alternate way. Which document can they submit it? 25A talking about when a person who is liable to be registered under this act failed to obtain the registration. Now they are talking about suo motu registration by the officer. Suo motu registration by the officer. So if one person is liable to take registration and failure to obtain the registration, then proper officer will grant the registration. And this registration would be valid for 3 months. And after that, if it is registration is applicable, you have to apply for a regular category or the regular category of the registration, or if not, then automatically it will be deactivated. 25 subsection 9 talks about notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 1. Now they are talking about UIN, unique identity number, UIN. What is UIN? Special agencies of the United Nations Organization, multilateral financial institution, organization notified under United Nations, consulate or foreign embassies, or any other person as may be notified, shall be granted unique identity number. Unique identity number. So you will listen the word UIN. You will listen the word UIN. What is that UIN? 25 subsection 9, United Nations Organization, foreign consulate, embassies. They will take registration. They will take registration under 25 subsection 9. Okay. And what is the main purpose? So they can take the refund of input. They can take the refund of inward supply to the goods or services under the UIN category, because outward supply, there would be no outward supply which is taxable. So therefore, what is the purpose of that number? The purpose of that number, so UIN can apply for the refund. Refund chapter is not in our syllabus, so we are not going to discuss in detail. Suo motu means by at its own choice, by the proper officer itself. So you have not applied the registration. You were liable to take registration. Now, let's say I am GST officer. You have not applied. You were liable to register. Now, I am by every means, I have decided, nay, you are liable to take, but not taken. So I can allot the GST number on suo motu basis at my choice, at my own choice, by my own working. I can grant the GST number. That is suo motu. There are 3 subsection. Registration of the UIN shall be granted or rejected after due verification. That is okay. Certificate of registration will be issued in REG. Certificate of the registration will be issued in REG 06. Date we will discuss. A registration or a UIN shall be deemed to have been granted after the expiry of the period prescribed in subsection 10 if no deficiency has been communicated to the applicant within that period. So whatever the period it has been prescribed, after the expiry of that period, it will be deemed to be granted. The registration will be deemed to be granted. What is the period? We'll discuss in the next class. Any other question? You can ask the question. I am giving you 3 minutes, and after that, last 10 minutes, we will have the quick round of the question answer. So I have completed till section 25. In the next class, we will start from section 26. We will start from section 26. Now, it's quick round of the question answer. Before that, if you have any question, please ask. Otherwise, I will start my quick round. I am giving you 3 minutes. You can ask the question, else I will start the quick round of questions. Definitely. Quick summary, definitely. In the form of question, Pooja, in the form of question. So like I'm always taking the question last 10 minutes. So by that, it will be revised. Let me start. I hope there is no question. I hope there is no question. Let me start the question. First question. GST number, how much digit? How many digits are there in the GST number? How many digits are there in the GST registration number? How many digits are there in the GST registration? Length of the GST registration number. Sakti will discuss. The 25 subsection will discuss in the next class now. Normal to the special state, then what limit is to be taken? Normal state. So from where the sales originated, from the sales originated, that you have to take. So if you are saying you are making the supply from normal to the special category state, so from where you are making the sale is normal state, so the normal state limit would be applicable. Fine. The answer would be Answer would be 15 digit. Answer would be 15 digit. Great. Answer would be 15 digit. If I am supplying the goods as well as services, what would be the threshold limit if it is a normal state? If I am supplying the goods as well as services, what would be the threshold limit if I am in the normal state? If one is in the normal state, making the supply the goods as well as supply the services, what would be the threshold limit? Answer would be 20. If one is making the interstate supply the goods, limit would be 0, 20 or 40. If one is making the supply of the goods from one state to the another state, limit would be 0, 20 or 40. Limit would be 0, 20 or 40. Limit would be 0, 20 or 40. Answer would be 0. Answer would be 0. If I am making the interstate taxable supplies of the goods, it is mandatory registration. What about the services? If I am making the interstate supply of the services, what would be the answer? 0, 20 or 40? What would be your answer? 0, 20 or 40? The answer would be, if I am making the interstate supply of the service, if I am making the interstate supply of the services, what would be your answer? 0, 20 or 40? Interstate supply of the services, what would be the answer? Will I fall in the mandatory? Therefore, answer would be 0, or the limit would be 20, or the limit would be 40. Interstate supply of the services. Answer would be 20. In case of the supply the services, yes, I can obtain the 20 lakh limit. Listen my question carefully. If I am supplying the goods through e-commerce operator, if I am supplying the goods through e-commerce operator, limit would be 0, 20 or 40. If I am supplying the goods through e-commerce operator, limit would be 0, 20 or 40. So I'm assuming a special category state, the limit correspondingly would be reduced. Absolutely correct, Ayush. So I am assuming that the limit for the, wherever the case may be applicable, special category limit would be considered. So instead of 20, the answer would be 10. Okay. If I am supplying the goods, if I am supplying the goods through e-commerce operator, what would be? I assume that I belongs to the normal state. Assume that I belongs to the normal state. I am making the supply the goods. I am making the supply the goods through e-commerce operator. Answer would be 0, 20 or 40. Answer would be 0. Answer would be 0 if it is goods, and if it is services, 20. So in case of the services, kindly confirm my statement is correct or not. Kindly confirm my statement is correct or not. I am assuming that I am belongs to the normal state, and I am making the, whether I make the supply within the state, whether I make the supply the service within the state, or make the supply the service through e-commerce operator, or make the supply the service from one state to the another state, my limit would always be 20 lakhs. Kindly confirm whether my statement is correct or not. Kindly confirm whether my statement is correct or not. In case of the service, whether I provide intra or inter or through ECO, limit would remain 20 lakhs. There is no mandatory category of registration. Whether my statement is correct or not. Whether my statement is correct or not. Answer is correct. Can you please tell me? Can you please tell me what is the 4 special category state? Can you please tell the name? Can you please tell the name? 4 special category state name. name of the 4 special category state for which the limit is 10 lakh. Can you please tell me name of the 4 special category state for which the limit is 10 lakh? Can you please tell me the name of the 4 special category state for which the limit is 10 lakhs? The 4 special category state for which the limit is 10 lakh. For which limit is 10 lakh. Pooja, I have assumed that whatever my question, the last question, I have assumed that I belongs from normal state. Answer is Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura, Nagaland. Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura, Nagaland. Oh my, great. Thank you so much, Srinivas. Thank you so much. What is the meaning of aggregate turnover? In the aggregate turnover, kindly give me the answer. We will include so many things. Please, as per your understanding, give me the answer. What we are including in the aggregate turnover. Please give me the answer. What we are including in the aggregate turnover. In the aggregate turnover definition, we are including what things we are including. What are the which supplies we are including? Which supplies we are including? Give me the maximum answer you know. It is a subjective. You whatever you want, whatever you want to write, whatever you know, please write. My question is, what things will be included in the aggregate turnover? What things will be included in the aggregate turnover? Let me see the answer. All are correct. All are correct. Exempted supplies, taxable supplies, interstate, export, and pan India. Correct. We will consider, we will count of all India turnover. All India turnover. Okay. Next question. Can you please tell me what the things will not be included? Which transaction will not be included in case of the aggregate turnover? Which transaction will not be included in the aggregate turnover? Which transactions or which type of the things will not be included in the calculation of aggregate turnover? Please tell me which things, which component would be excluded in the aggregate turnover. I like to listen from each and everyone. Excluding inward supplies covered under RCM and CGST, SGST, UTGST, IGST, and cess. Absolutely correct. Now, can you tell me, we have discussed about if I am exclusively engaged in the goods, the limit would be 40 lakhs. If I am exclusively engaged in the goods, the limit would be 40 lakhs. Can you tell me some exception to that? Can you tell me some exception to that? Only 1 minute time is there for you. Can you tell me some exception to that when the limit, even though I am exclusively engaged in the goods, the limit of 40 lakh would not be there? When? Limit of the 40 lakh would not be there when? One notification we have discussed, which talks about that if I'm exclusively engaged in the goods, the limit would be 40 lakhs. But I'm talking about the exception when the 40 lakh limit would not be applicable. One is, so you give me the answer. I'm giving you 1 minute. I'm giving you 1 minute to all of you, then you give me the answer. What is the answer? First is if one is engaged in the business of pan masala, ice cream, tobacco, etc. Second is interstate supply, absolutely correct. Compulsory registration according to section 24. Excellent, Hitesh. Right, Ayush. Shivam. No, not exempted. section 24, it's correct. Special category state, Puducherry, Telangana. Very nice, Pravas. Very nice. Compulsory registration is special category state, Arunachal Pradesh, Telangana, Puducherry, Meghalaya, supplies ice cream, tobacco, palm are interested. We have written everything. Na? Opted for voluntarily. New point. Opted for voluntarily registration. Absolutely correct. Thank you so much. All are correct. Now give me the answer. Now give me the answer. If I am doing the business in special category state as well as normal state, I am only engaged in the goods. Will my limit would be 40 or will my limit would be 10? If I am doing the business, let's say Manipur, Nagaland, Mizoram, Tripura, I am supplying the goods in Minopur, Majiram also within the state and also in one normal state. What would be the threshold? Will it be 10 lakh? Will it be 40 lakhs? Will it be 10 lakh or will it be 40 lakh? The answer would be 10 lakhs. Answer would be 10 lakhs. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Can you tell me if e-commerce operator is considered as a deemed supplier? If e-commerce operator is considered as a deemed supplier, who is liable to take registration? Actual supplier or deemed supplier? Who is liable to take mandatory registration? Actual supplier or deemed supplier? If on any transaction, the e-commerce operator mediator is considered as a deemed supplier, who is liable to take registration under the GST in the regular category? Actual supplier or the deemed supplier? This e-commerce operator. Deemed supplier under section 9 subsection 5. I hope you remember the 4 transactions we have discussed. Can you tell me, in case of the deemed supplier, the actual supplier, let's say restaurant, is making the supply to the Swiggy, will it be taxable under forward charge or under RC? In case of the 9.5, the supply under 9.5, let's say restaurant, provided by the restaurant to the Swiggy, will it be taxable under forward charge or reverse charge? The answer would be no. It is not taxable. The transaction, there will be no tax liability by the actual supplier to the deemed supplier. The deemed supplier will pay the tax. Therefore, it is fall under the mandatory category of the registration. Can you tell me in which category of the registration PAN number is not mandatory? In which category the registration PAN number is not mandatory? In which category of the registration PAN number is not mandatory? Ayush, no reverse charge. Ayush, reverse charge would not be there in this case. There is no tax. There is no concept of reverse charge. Restaurant to the Swiggy, no reverse charge. Please note, reverse charge would be applicable only for the notified category of 9.3 or 9.4. It is not notified, therefore no tax liability, neither on the supplier nor on the recipient. Only when the deemed supplier, e-commerce operator, will make the supply to the actual customer, they will pay the tax under forward charge. In which case, this is the last question, in which case PAN number is not mandatory, the GST number will be allocated on the basis of some other number. I don't know. In which case PAN number is not mandatory, in which case PAN number is not mandatory, in which case PAN number is not mandatory, the GST number would be allocated on the basis of some other number. Only TDS, Karthik, not the TCS. You have given the right answer. TDS under section 51. TCS is covered under section 52. That is applicable on e-commerce operator. But instead of the PAN number, GST number can be allocated on the basis of the PAN number of income tax. That is TDS category. And whatever the answer you are giving now, NRTP case, that we have discussed Aadhaar authentication. Aadhaar authentication would not be applicable for non-resident taxable category. They would be asked for some other document on the basis of which the number would be allocated. Is it clear? From my side, today class is over. Any question you can ask. Waiting for 1 more minutes. I am waiting for 1 more minutes. You can ask any question if you have. Waiting for your answer, waiting for your any point, any question, or we can conclude our today class. Thank you very much. Good night to all of you. We'll meet on the next class with the balance part of the registration chapter. Over to you, Mr. Ashokji. Kindly.